Welcome to the XLNavigator Date Picker Calendar add-in for Excel. This add-in is designed for the Windows desktop version of Excel. Once you install the XLNavigator add-in, navigate to the XLNavigator tab on the ribbon menu. You may notice the Date Picker Calendar panel appears on the left side when it first opens. Now you may only be interested in the Date Picker as a pop-up and not the Calendar panel. You can easily disable the Calendar side panel by clicking on the Toggle Side Panel button. This will hide it completely and give you additional Excel real estate. You can also turn it back on at any time, and it will remember this setting. When you reopen Excel next time, it will remain hidden until you show it again. What you can also do, especially if you have multiple add-ins installed or the all-in-one version of XLNavigator, is collapse the task pane panels like this one on the left side. The shortcut button will still remain there. You can click on it as you need it, and when you exit the panel, it will collapse back to the side. This is a very convenient way to use it. Alternatively, if you want to work with it for a while, you can click the expand button on the left side. Simply click that button, and it will expand the panel for your viewing pleasure. First, I'm going to talk about the functionality related to the date picker. Let me select a few multiple dates here. I'll select a few dates and set the date in them using the calendar picker on the side there. Once we have these dates, the pop-up will automatically appear. As you can see, as I navigate through the cells, if there's a date, the pop-up will appear. If you don't want to use the pop-up and just want to navigate with your keys through the cell, hit the Escape key, and it will take the focus back to your cell. That's how you can navigate between cells and escape if you don't want to use the pop-up. You can also disable it at any point. Under Preferences, simply uncheck the Auto Pop-up Enabled checkbox. Now, if you navigate through these dates, you'll see that the pop-up will not appear. To re-enable the Auto Pop-up feature, simply go to the ribbon menu and click Enable Auto Pop-up. Just check it and that will re-enable it. You can also right-click to access the right-click menu. Go down to the bottom and navigate to Date Picker. You can also enable or disable the pop-up here. These are different ways that you can reach that option. In addition to the Date Picker showing like this, you also have the calendar at the bottom that you can expand. This allows you to visually see dates and select a date directly from the calendar view. If you want the calendar to automatically show whenever you select a date, you can check the Auto Expand Calendar option. This way, it will remember your settings. Once you close Classic Cell and reopen it, the application will remember your last settings that you checked here. When you exit and then go back into your date picker, you'll see the calendar will automatically display with your selected date. That's essentially how the pop-up behavior works. In addition to that, there's one more important setting to show you, the Adjust for High DPI option. Looking at this on the ribbon, this should be unchecked for your regular size screen. If you have a standard monitor, like in my case here in this demo, a 1920 by 1080 screen, then unchecking this option will be best for optimal display. However, if you're using a higher resolution screen with Windows DPI scaling enabled, the pop-up form may appear truncated in certain areas. Let me show you what this looks like. If your pop-up appears like this, where the calendar is cut off at the bottom, overlapping your selected cell, and the preferences don't completely show, then you need to check the Adjust for High DPI checkbox to resolve the display issue. They automatically accommodate and display properly on your high-resolution screen without any cutoff issues. Now let's explore the date picker functionality in more detail. When you select a cell with a date, the pop-up will respect whatever date format you've configured. The date picker also works with empty cells that have date formatting applied. This cell has no value but contains date formatting, so when I click on it, the date picker appears and defaults to today's date. You can select any date you want from the calendar. If you open the date picker but decide not to select a date, you can simply press Escape to close it and continue working. You can also press Escape and manually type your own date directly into the cell. This means the date picker doesn't lock you into only using the calendar interface. You have complete flexibility to either use the visual picker or type dates manually. The date picker will always respect your custom date formatting. Let me demonstrate this with a practical example. I'll take this cell that already contains a date and apply a custom date format to show how the picker adapts. When we change the cell's date format, the picker will display and accept dates according to that specific formatting style, ensuring consistency throughout your spreadsheet. Now let's scroll up and select this cell with the custom date format. Notice how the date picker visually displays the date according to the formatting we applied. I can change this date to something else, and when I press Escape, you'll see that it retains that specific date format. As long as you don't modify the formatting settings, the picker will respect whatever custom date format exists in that cell. It's worth noting that if you're located outside the United States, your regional date formats may appear different, and the date picker will automatically work with those regional settings. The formats I'm showing here are applicable to US standards, but the default will vary depending on your geographic region. Now, in addition to basic date selection, the date picker offers time functionality as well. If I select one of these format options, let's choose the Date plus Time option by clicking the D plus T radio button. You'll see that I now have a time component integrated with the date picker. I can set both the date and the specific time, and when I press Escape, you'll notice I now have a complete date and time format displayed in the cell. I can also modify this to show just the time component if needed. Let me change this to time only, set a specific time value, and press Escape. Now the cell displays only the time format. The key point here is that when you select between these different radio button options, it will replace whatever date format was previously applied to that cell, giving you complete control over how temporal data appears in your spreadsheet. Each of these three settings comes with a default date format that gets applied when you select them. Now let's explore some additional features. When the date picker appears, it attempts to determine your mouse cursor's last position and displays the picker relative to that location. This provides the closest approximation to your actual cell location for the pop-up. However, if you navigate using keyboard keys, the system cannot determine the cell position based on mouse cursor location. In this case, the pop-up will still appear at your last known mouse position. The great thing is you can click and drag the date picker anywhere on the screen for optimal positioning, giving you complete flexibility in how you use this tool. Let me close this and demonstrate the Calendar Task Pane feature. The Calendar Task Pane displays 3 to 4 months by default in the panel view. But here's a useful feature. You can expand the panel by grabbing the Resize slider and dragging it wider to the right. As you expand the panel, additional months become visible. With the standard default calendar size, we can view up to an entire year of months simultaneously. Notice that the calendar also includes week numbers for enhanced date reference and planning capabilities. Let me adjust the panel width to demonstrate the responsive behavior. As I make the panel narrower, you'll notice fewer months display in the calendar view. Beyond the standard default calendar size we just explored, you also have the option to use an enlarged calendar view. This is particularly useful depending on your screen resolution or visibility preferences. I'll enable the larger calendar option now. Once activated, this provides a slider control that allows you to dynamically adjust the calendar size. You can make the calendar quite small for a compact view or scale it up significantly for enhanced readability. The slider moves smoothly from left to right, giving you precise control over the display size. Let me expand the panel width again to show the full capabilities. With the enlarged calendar enabled and set to approximately 1.25 scale, we can now display substantially more months simultaneously. As you can see, we're viewing multiple rows of months. Here we have several months visible in each row, creating a comprehensive multi-month grid layout. When I collapse the panel height slightly, you can observe how the calendar maintains its multi-month display while adapting to the available space. This expanded view is particularly valuable for long-term planning scenarios. When you're working with Excel data that spans extended time periods, having this broad calendar perspective allows you to visualize date relationships and plan your schedules more effectively across multiple months at once. The calendar reflects this selected date relationship perfectly. Let me resize this back to the standard dimensions. I'll uncheck the Use Larger Calendar option and collapse the Settings panel. Notice on the left side we have the full month view displayed. When we select a date cell, you can see how the calendar immediately reflects your position within the context of the selected dates. However, you might not want the calendar to change based on your date selection. You can disable this by unchecking the Show Selected Values on Calendar option. Now, when you select a cell containing a date, it won't be reflected on the calendar display. This gives you the flexibility to either show your current selection or maintain a static calendar view. The choice is entirely yours. There's one additional feature I want to highlight, the Auto Fit Date Columns option. Notice this column is quite narrow right now. When I select a date in this narrow cell, you can see the value appears truncated because the column width is insufficient to display the complete date. If I uncheck the Auto Fit Date Columns option and select the date again, you'll see it remains too narrow to show the full value until you manually expand the column width. However, when this option is checked and I select a date, the column automatically expands to accommodate and display the complete date value. This is particularly useful when working with narrow columns, ensuring your date values are always fully visible without manual column adjustments. You can also reposition this panel by dragging it to the right side of your screen. Simply drag the calendar panel to display it on the right side instead. When you close and reopen Excel later, the date picker will remember the last location of your calendar panel and keep it positioned exactly where you left it. If the panel was collapsed when you last closed Excel, it will remain collapsed until you manually expand it again. The system remembers all your settings, giving you complete flexibility in how you want to use the date picker and calendar functionality. This concludes our demonstration of the XLNavigator Date Picker and Calendar features. Thank you for watching.